Hi there, my name is Olivia.
And I'm Adele.
And we are two criminology students from the University of Toronto. We are very happy to have been invited by Regent Park Focus to conduct a TV mini-series on some of the most important issues related to crime.
For our first episode, we decided to focus on media and crime perception. This is a very important issue because in today's day and age, we receive a lot of information from the mass media. We are constantly bombarded with crime news and popular representations of crime. This information shapes and often misinforms our understanding of criminality, which in turn can have an effect on policy decisions.
In order to get a sense of how local and outside residents feel about crime in Regent Park, as well as in the greater Toronto area, we decided to conduct street interviews outside the local fresco. While responses were quite varied, we noticed a few important trends. First, the majority of individuals interviewed said that crime is definitely increasing. So Debbie, do you feel that crime is increasing or decreasing in the city of Toronto?
Increasing.
Why is that?
Honestly, youth have nothing to do.
I find crime has been going up. You know, you would think that because of the realization plan, things would have been better, but I just think it's going up a bit.
Second, most of them refer to television and print news to justify their responses.
Drug-related crime, I suspect, is increasing only because I see more of it mentioned on the news these days.
I never see a crime here in Regent Park, but I hear about somebody was shot in this closed building, but I never see somebody was shot in front of me.
I think it's increasing for sure. I base my facts on the news I see, the shootings and all that.
This finding was not surprising. In recent decades, academics have agreed that while crime rates overall have been decreasing in most North American cities, crime coverage by mass media outlets have increased exponentially. Thus, it is not uncommon for residents to think that crime is increasing, when in reality it is the news about crime that has been on the rise.
Our goal for this episode is to help the general public understand the complex relationship between media and crime. We hope the information presented would help audiences be more critical about crime stories they read and watch on television. In terms of gang-related activity, 75% of respondents believe that the City of Toronto has a growing problem with gangs and guns.
When you see the news and you see these shootings that take place where a car takes off and someone is left on the pavement, I'm assuming that's a gang and drug-related issue.
Well, always gangsters has to do with drugs and with crimes.
With the recent news,
The shooting.
yeah, I think there are too many guns on the street.
What I see on the news is the gun. Every day there's a gun shoot.
There was a general concern that the city is getting worse and that American culture and media is influenced Toronto. However, looking more critically, we see that there is a media sensationalization of gangs that catches our attention and helps drive this gang problem rhetoric into the general public. For instance, a recent Toronto Sun article in February of 2017 was titled "Regent Park Gangs, Internal Cleansing Spreads." The article brought up recent shootings and tied them back to the Regent Park community as a whole. When crime occurs in dangerous neighborhoods like Regent Park or Dixon, the media and the police often look for gang activity as a motive. Academics theorize that this is done with a political motive. The police often feed the media with stories and hold large press conferences that are heavily covered by the media.
We saw this happen after the Dixon Road raids, codenamed Project Traveler. In the raids, the police seized 40 firearms, over $3 million in cash, and arrested 43 individuals. The police went on to showcase what they had uncovered in a large press conference that was picked up by every major news outlet after the raid. However, a Vice documentary titled "This is Dixon" went to the streets to ask individuals about gang presence in the area, and they found that the mainstream media had blown the issue well out of proportion. So who benefits from making the problem seem larger than it is? The media profits because crime sells. The police gain benefits because they are able to ask the city for increased funding to deal with the problem. So all we're asking is that you think critically when listening to the radio, watching TV, or reading the news. Everything you hear must be taken with a grain of salt, and we have to try to understand how a story can benefit certain individuals or groups. In our interviews, many respondents said they felt like crime and gangs are on the rise only because that is what they are told by the media, but we cannot blindly believe everything being told to us. A quick search through the official Statistics Canada website will provide a completely different story. Here, we have grouped a few crime statistics that address common misconceptions about crime that came up during our interviews.
Comparing news reports about crime to official crime data is a great way to be critical of what we see and hear on the news. Furthermore, as we have shown, crime statistics can help us understand general trends and address misconceptions. However, official crime data also has major limitations that must be addressed. Adil, could you tell us about some of these limitations?
Definitely. There are two limitations that are really important. The first has to do with the social organization of crime detection. All crime shown in official crime statistics is reported crime. However, there is a significant portion of crime that is either underreported or unreported. Crime is officially detected in one of two ways: reported by citizens or witnessed by the police. Any other crime that doesn't fall into these categories is simply not included in official crime data. The second major limitation is that crime statistics do not provide any context or information about the data presented. For example, you may see a spike in a particular crime as a result of a police crackdown. In other words, the reporting of the crime has increased, but not necessarily the crime itself. However, we cannot deduce this simply from information from crime stats.
So how does this relate back to the street interviews we conducted in Regent Park? Before we talk about some of the things that came up, it is important to note that the opinions of those interviewed are not necessarily reflective of general public opinion in Regent Park or in the broader GTA. Our aim was to gather enough information about individual opinions to be able to produce an analysis on public perceptions of crime.
The first important thing that came up was the perception and feeling of safety in the Regent Park community. 80% of our respondents claimed that they felt safe in both the City of Toronto and Regent Park in particular, despite the fact that none of them felt that crime was decreasing. Even those people coming from outside Regent Park, whether here to buy groceries or work, claimed that they felt safe in this community.
I feel very safe. I do feel safe. I've not had an untoward incident since I've been coming here to take advantage of the lower prices here on Parliament Street.
Based on these findings, it seems that the stigma associated to the neighborhood and the perception of crime in Regent Park in Toronto is disconnected to the feelings of safety.
The sense of safety can possibly come from the idea that the police are effectively doing their jobs, which brings us to the second theme that came up in the interviews, that of police effectiveness. Nearly 60% of respondents felt that the police were doing their part in attempting to control crime.
I think they're doing a good job because I see them every time, like the fire or the police always rushing, always reaching on time to help people.
They're doing the best they can do with the resources that they have.
However, when asked, a few respondents recommended that the criminal justice system as a whole needs some reworking. Some advocated for stiffer penalties, one even suggesting that the practice of carding ought to be brought back.
So if there was one thing that you could change about the criminal justice system here, what would it be?
Stiffer penalties for whatever crime you done.
I know a lot of people don't agree with carding, but I agree with it because not everybody is out there doing stupid stuff. If you look shady, then they're gonna stop you.
Carding was stopped in 2016 because of the issue of an allegation of racial profiling. Now, due to Canada's restriction on releasing race-related crime data, it is difficult to determine exactly how much of an impact racial profiling had on carding.
Research conducted at the University of Toronto investigates how different racial groups reacted to carding. The research found that 1 in 4 black males were stopped by the police in a 2-year period. Carding practices and policing in general tend to target minority groups in a disproportionate manner. We can tie these concepts back to the media In the mass media, whether it be news or entertainment, we are constantly fed the idea of a non-white offender, often black or Latino. They are depicted as a group of delinquents who cause nothing but trouble. Therefore, many people believe that it is okay to stop them and see what they're up to. The common idea is that if you have nothing to hide, you should not be concerned about stops.
If you have nothing to hide, what's the problem? There's no problem in telling an officer, you know, what your name is, where your address is.
But the point is that these random stops should not be occurring at all.
So why is this important? Directly or indirectly, we shape our ideas about life and society through external influences like media. Subconsciously, our thoughts are shaped by what we hear and see. However, we often fail to see that the media has an agenda, and we believe everything they tell us. Whether it be news, movies, TV shows, or even books, we must be more critical about the image of crime that is being portrayed. In many cases, the perceptions set forth by the media are not entirely representative of the truth.
So what can we do about this? To begin, we recommend you do not only get your news from one source. Diversify your sources of information and knowledge so you hear different points of view. And most importantly, think critically about what you hear from all the sources. So that's all for today. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.